Architect Divya Chakravarti. She completed her undergraduate studies from SRM University and she went on to pursue her master's in historic preservation and urbanism and study of the built environment from the University of California, Los Angeles. She went on to work for the Department of Planning and Preservation for the city of Pasadena, California. She also did a brief stint of work for Historic Scotland, Edinburgh, UK. She also worked on conservation projects like Khalsa Mahal, Gokhale Hall in Chennai, and Marimalappa Educational Trust in Mysore. She is currently working as a director of Samrakshan Heritage Consultancy. She is also a co-founder of the Artisan Reprisal of Traditional Materials, Method and Technology. She goes on to conduct workshops to revive traditional and lost methods of construction.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series for Bachelors of Architecture. The subject we are discussing is environmental science. The topic we will be delving into is Introduction to Environmental Studies and Natural Resources. In this lecture, we will start off with this definition of environment. We will discuss the scope and the importance of environment, need for public awareness, forest resources, their uses and their overexploitation. We will start off with the definition of environmental studies. If you look at the word environment, it actually covers anything that surrounds or the surroundings where people live or plants live or animals live. So, it actually is the external conditions influencing the development or growth of people, animals or plants, which even affects the living or the working conditions. Circumstances and conditions that surround an organism, social and cultural conditions that affect an individual. If you look at the scope of environment, the different components are atmosphere, which is the virtual ocean of air. Hydrosphere is the surface of earth which is filled with any form of water. Lithosphere is the outer shell of the earth composed of the crust and the rigid outermost mantle, and biosphere is the place on earth where actual life exists. So, these four encompasses the scope of the environment. If you look into the details of environmental studies, it actually encompasses systematic understanding of our environment. It is highly interdisciplinary in the sense you cannot study the environment in a unilateral way. It is affected and it is influenced by many planes, many different branches of science and as well as the environment. It is inclusive, it is holistic, it is mission oriented in the sense it is very purpose driven. What is the purpose of studying environment of the environment and its precursors, the elements that are going to affect the environment? All of this is very mission oriented. It is essential to study to overcome the environmental crisis. If you look at the objectives of environmental studies, first is awareness about our environment and its allied problems. Second, we have the knowledge which is basically required for understanding and to experience our environment and associated problems. Attitude is what is the concern for the environment that people have, how actively are we going to participate in its improvement and protection. Skill, to identify and solve different environmental problems. What kind of skill set do we possess? How do we go about developing this skill set? Participation, providing opportunity to be involved in resolving the environmental problems. The importance of environmental studies, it basically enlightens us about the importance of protection and conservation of our environment. It actually has become significant for the following reasons. Number one, environment issues have gained a lot of international importance. The problems that have cropped in the wake of development, especially in the Western Hemisphere, as the Industrial Revolution has happened, we were not initially aware of the problems that is generating on the environment and the after effects in the environment. Now, as other parts of the world are getting developed, we are more aware that there are repercussions from this process of development and industrialization. Explosive increase in pollution, need for an alternative solution, need to save humanity from extinction, and need for wise planning of development. All of these are interdependent on each other. Because of development, now even in development in different fields, there's been a huge population explosion, and because of the population explosion, even the rate of death rate has decreased, mortality has decreased. So because of that, the number of people existing has also increased, and because of that, the pollution has increased, and all of these are just piling on each other. So now there is obviously a need to find an alternative solution to protect and conserve the environment. The basic benefits of environmental studies: conservation of energy and fast depleting natural resources. We are running through our natural resources like there is no tomorrow, whereas we have to make sure that we come up with alternate sources of energy and ensure that the fuels are preserved for posterity as well. Increase in economic productivity, imparting knowledge about waste management, treatment and disposal, develop social responsibility towards environment protection, creating awareness to control population as well as the pollution which is generating from the increase in population, inculcating an attitude and values towards understanding interdependence of nature and man and work towards a very sustainable development. So when you actually look at a social responsibility, it is no longer that the nature is required by man. It has crossed that stage where man requires every bit of nature to continue his life successfully on earth. So it's very much our responsibility to ensure that we protect the environment, protect nature which is part of the environment, and we take it to the future generations as well. If you look at the framework for addressing, you have a series of ways you can address this problem of environment. First, you need to scientifically assess what is important. How are things going to go about in a scientific manner? Then there is a risk analysis. Then you have to educate the public and make sure they are involved, because for environment to be preserved and protected, it is not sufficient that governments and associations take large laws and public policies. It's very important that every layman is contributing towards protecting and preserving the environment. Then political action. If someone doesn't adhere to certain regulations, what action can be taken against such people? And finally, you have an evaluation based on all of these above elements, where you have an assessment, then you analyze how this assessment and what are the process or you can go about to preserve or protect the environment, and how you can involve the public and how you can educate the public before involving them so they are aware of the importance of the problem, and political action simultaneously to ensure that whatever the public does has repercussions, and evaluation finally to ensure that whatever has been taken place is going on in the right path. If you look at the major global environmental problems which is affecting world over, different parts of the world, different countries everywhere, are global warming, ozone layer depletion, acid rain, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, water pollution, desertification, waste disposal, rapid population growth, depletion of non-renewable energy sources, food and water shortage. If looking at this list, it seems like it's a never-ending list, and it's all again interconnected to each other, because, and these are not things that have happened because nature has suddenly stopped producing certain important things or the environment has decided to go on a strike. It is all happening because of our haphazard use of these elements, haphazard use of technology and development without any concern for the surrounding environment. What is the basic need for creating an awareness among the general public? It is very important to understand that the natural environment and man-made environment are interdependent. That is the most crucial thing. Many people don't even know. If you look at the children, and there was a study which took place, they would ask the children where their milk came from which they drank, and all of them said it came out of the carton. That is the level of lack of education and awareness, that they didn't even know that their everyday livelihood and everyday food, everything that they wanted and needed, was from some natural resource or source. It's essential to make public aware of formidable consequences of the environmental degradation, let it be either regional, local, or even global. Reformative measures, if not undertaken, would result in the extinction of life. Environmental protection is every individual's obligation and duty, and so environmental consciousness needs to be propagated at all levels. And it's not something that only adults need to get into. The main problem they have assessed is we are not educating our children enough. It needs to start at the very smallest level of homes and schools for it to reach a larger level. The goals of environmental education: to develop teaching materials and aids for formal education sector, to encourage non-governmental organizations for promoting awareness, to promote the environment education through existing educational, scientific or research institutes, to ensure training and manpower development in environmental education, to mobilize people's awareness for preservation and conservation of the environment. If you look at formal environmental education in our country, in schools it's through textbooks. In colleges and university level you have MSc degrees, MPhil degrees and PhD programs in environmental, chemical, bio or toxicology. You have masters in engineering and masters in technology in environmental engineering, PG diploma courses in environmental management. But all of this tends to be very bookish, and when you actually look at the level it gets transpired to reality, it is a very small percentage. Especially in schools, instead of having it just through textbooks, it needs to be through class-based activities, because especially in school level learning, time is not a constraint and children are in a level where they can learn things faster and absorb them in their day-to-day livelihood, which will make a huger impact as they grow into adults. And once if children start doing certain things, their parents in turn will be forced to follow certain things within the home front. You have environmental appreciation course, which is done by IGNOU and MOEF, which is a non-credit 3-month awareness course to create environmental consciousness and leadership among people. Usually this is done like without any requirement, or this is a co-credit that is given when you're doing a master's or your post-graduation in management and business studies, so that managers and leaders can introduce environmentally sound practices in their operations. That is something that is started in recent times, especially in the manufacturing industry or any industry. They want to reduce waste, they want to make sure they can reuse and recycle, and all of this they can learn through management and business schools, which teaches them how to run a business. Another branch of it could be how to deal with the environment in a safe and precautious way. Non-formal education and awareness. The National Environmental Awareness Campaign, NEAC, this was introduced in mid-1986. It is a multimedia campaign. It is nominal financial assistance provided to NGOs, schools and other institutions to conduct awareness activities. The activities could be seminars, workshops, camps, rallies, exhibitions, debates, street theatre, planting of trees, cleaning of public areas, water bodies, anything. So all of this is what we even read in newspapers like today. School students went to a particular lake area, cleaned a particular water body. All of this is actually caught on only recently, even though this was set nearly about 30 years ago. It is implemented through 28 regional resource agencies. Next step you have is the eco clubs of the National Green Corps to sensitize school students. Eco clubs are being set up in 100 schools of every district in the country. 50,000 have been set up so far. Government provides financial assistance and training to teachers as well as the resource material. Another thing which has happened in recent times is encouraging students into gardening, into growing a terrace garden, into a farm within the school premises, where they realize that how difficult it is to actually grow the vegetables that they consume on an everyday basis. They are actually involved in the process of how a plant should be taken care of, and the cycles of life that is required for a plant to grow and how dependent we are on plant life as human beings. The GLOBE, that is the global learning and observations to benefit the environment. This is another non-formal education method. India joined this international program aimed at school students in the year 2000. Students of GLOBE school collect data about environmental parameters under trained teachers, and this data is used to explain various hypotheses. Students interact with GLOBE scientists and participate in workshops on basic and advanced GLOBE protocols. Mass awareness. This main focus is on rural areas. Doordarshan and other channels telecast environmental based programs, commercials, films or documentaries. Professional media agencies are hired to assist in this process. Other awareness program, if you look at it, is the Green Olympiad, which is conducted by TERI. 80,000 school students from Russia, UAE and India participate. Awareness activities by NGOs and other institutions on environment days like Earth Day. TV quiz programs for winners of regional, which is written environmental based programs. Vacation program on natural resources, building a broader constituency of support for conservation for high school students, organized by Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment, which is an NGO. So, in spite of all these activities happening, what is it happening at the grassroots level, especially as students not only in the urban sector but also in the rural sector? The usual preconceived notion is it's only the students in the urban sector that need to be taught about the environment. The rural students obviously realize how things are happening in villages. It may be true to a certain extent, especially with food resources, but otherwise to understand how industries are working, what kind of pollution happens in cities. These days even rural areas face a lot of different kinds of pollution. So, it needs to be done throughout the country, irrespective of it being a rural area or a urban area. The way it's dealt with is obviously going to be different, but there has to be both a formal as well as an informal education base and an awareness program that needs to be conducted to ensure that at the very level, the smallest level, and right from kindergarten, children are made aware that the environment plays a very important role in their lives. You have different centers of excellence. This scheme was started in 1983 to strengthen research, awareness and training in priority areas of environmental science and management. Till now, 9 centers have been established. You have some in Chennai, Ahmedabad, Coimbatore, Dhanbad, Delhi. And now if you move on to green technology, this is basically a branch off from technology at a time where they realize that all forms of technology is actually not helping man in the long term. There are certain types of technology that are actually causing more harm than doing any good. So, the green technology came about as a way of making sure that man is not compromising on his creature comforts and development. At the same time, the environment can be saved. This is an advancement in science and technology which has led to indiscriminate exploitation of exhaustible resources and expulsion of hazardous chemical as well as synthetic waste in the environment. This has created extraordinary technical, health, economic, environmental, political as well as social issues. Green technology or clean technology encompasses a continuously evolving group of methods as well as materials, from techniques for generating energy to non-toxic cleaning products. Like we mentioned, it encompasses anything to make sure man does not have to compromise on his standard of living, but at the same time the environment is not given up as a consequential byproduct. Green technology or clean tech is the development and application of products, equipment and systems used to conserve the natural environment and resources, which minimize and reduce the negative impact of human activities. Criteria of green tech products, equipments or systems: it minimizes the degradation of the environment, it has zero or low greenhouse gas, that is GHG emissions, It is safe for use and promotes healthy and improved environment for all forms of life. It conserves the use of energy and natural resources. It promotes the use of renewable resources. Moving on to the goals of green technology. Number 1, sustainability, which is like the go-to in the today's world. Meeting present needs of society without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Cradle to cradle design, ending the cradle to grave cycle of manufactured products by creating products that can be fully reclaimed or reused. Source reduction, that is reducing waste and pollution by changing patterns of production as well as consumption. Innovation, developing alternatives to technologies, whether fossil fuels or chemical intensive agriculture, that have been demonstrated to damage health and even the environment. Over a period of time, by using continuous chemical fertilizers, the produce might come faster and faster, say in 3 months and 6 months, but eventually the land becomes infertile. Viability, creating a center of economic activity around technologies and products that benefit the environment, speeding their implementation and creating new careers that truly protect the planet. Green technology subject areas. If you look at the few options we will first study are energy development of alternative fuels, which means you are creating new means of generating new energy forms and improving energy efficiency and being less dependent on non-renewable forms of energy sources. Green building encompasses everything from choice of building materials to the very location of the building site. Environmentally preferred purchasing. This is where government purchasing of products whose contents and methods of production have had the smallest impact on the environment. So, by giving the incentives to such manufacturers and producers, you are encouraging people to behave in an environmentally friendly manner. Green chemistry, invention, design and application of chemical products and processes to reduce and eliminate the use and generation of hazardous substances. Green nanotechnology application is a combination of green chemistry and green engineering principles to materials at a nano scale. Green computing, designing, manufacturing, using and disposing of computers and associated subsystems effectively with minimal or very less impact on the environment. Examples of clean technology: unleaded petrol, sulfur-free coal, CNG, LPG, biofuels and hybrid vehicles. Air pollution control equipments like catalytic converters, electrostatic precipitators, fuel gas desulfurization units, etc. Genetically engineered crops which require less chemical pesticides due to their genetic resistance to diseases and pests. Solar energy, hydro energy, ocean energy, geothermal energy, wind energy as alternatives. Recycling of waste paper, metal, glass, fly ash, slag, red mud, etc. If you look at the different types of basic natural resources, we have forest resources, water resources, mineral, food, land and energy. We will start off with studying the forest resources of India. If you look at forest resources, it is just not, we are not talking only about massive jungles and the forests and greenery. You might think they have very little use, they just provide the green cover that is required. But it actually has a lot of in-depth important role it plays in our economy of any country forest exists in. It is highly complex, changing environment made up of living and non-living things. Living things include trees, shrubs, wildlife, etc. and non-living things include water, nutrients, rocks, sunlight and air. Even though in the non-living things water is inclusive, it actually plays an important role in both the living as well as non-living things. Forest varies a great deal in composition and density and are distinct from meadows and pastures. Forests are very important to humans as well as the natural world. For humans, they have many aesthetics, recreational, economic, historical, cultural and religious values. Forests provide fuel, wood, timber, wildlife, habitat, industrial, forest products, climate regulations, medicinal, etc. Even within our own city, Chennai, if you look at the temperature throughout the city on a given day, areas around Gindi Park, which is one of the largest green belts within the city, and then around Vandalur Zoo or the Anna Zoo, the temperature is about 3 degrees lesser. That is the importance of having a green area. So, when temperature and precipitation makes a huge difference, we realize the importance of having a forest cover. Let it be haphazardly planned initially, or it could be even later on domesticated forests. Looking at the meaning of the word forest, it is derived from the Latin word foris, meaning outside. Originally, it is uncultivated, uninhabited village boundaries consisting of natural plants which could be trees as well as shrubs and grasses. It means an association of plants, natural or cultivated, predominantly trees. In the words of Allen and Sharp, forest is a community of trees and associated organisms covering a considerable area, utilizing air, water and minerals to attain maturity and to reproduce and capable of furnishing mankind with indispensable products and services. If you look at the Indian scenario of the forest resources, obviously we have large diverse country, we have regions with some of the greatest rainfall to dry deserts, coastlines to alpine regions, river deltas to tropical islands. The variety and distribution of forest vegetation is large. There are around 600 species of hardwoods, including sal. India is one of the 17 mega biodiverse regions of the world. Indian forest types include tropical evergreens, tropical deciduous, swamps, mangroves, subtropical, montana scrub, subalpine and alpine forests. These forests support a variety of ecosystems with diverse flora and fauna. If you actually look at the forest cover in India, overall 21% of the country's geographical area is under the green cover. The total forest cover in India is unimaginably beyond a realm of one of the topmost in the world. The forest cover is defined by all lands more than 1 hectare in area with a tree canopy density of more than 10%. So, like I just said, it could be even cultivated or under control forest area like the Gindi Park and the Vandalur Zoo, or it could be even along the highways where it is just random uncontrollably built forests. You have very dense forests to non-forest areas. So, all of these include about 21% of the country's geographical area. At the end of this lecture, we have studied the importance, definition and scope of environment, the need for public awareness to protect and preserve the environment, the use of forest resources. At the end of this lecture, we should be able to answer the following questions. What is environment? What is scope of environment? What are the benefits of environmental studies? Name 6 major global environmental problems. Discuss the goals for environmental education. Define green technology. That brings us to the end of this lecture. Thank you.